Rain streaked down the windows of the small corner restaurant, each drop racing the next until it vanished into the blurred glow of streetlights. Inside, the air was warm with the scent of simmering broth and freshly baked bread. The low hum of conversation mixed with the faint hiss of soup bubbling in copper pots. And in the middle of it all stood Marco apron tied around his waist, dark curls falling over his forehead. Sleeves rolled to his elbows as he stirred the pot with practiced rhythm. Marco wasn't just a chef. He was a single father. Every dish he created, every shift he worked, carried the silent weight of responsibility. His daughter, Isabella, sat at the counter with crayons scattered before her, humming to herself as she colored a picture of a house surrounded by sunflowers. Every now and then, Marco glanced at her with a smile that mixed exhaustion and pride. She was his reason, his anchor, the light that softened the ache of long nights and endless bills. The bell over the door jingled, letting in a gust of cool air and a figure who immediately stood out from the cozy crowd. A woman stepped inside, clutching a crying infant to her chest. Her heels clicked on the floor, her tailored coat dripped with rain, and diamonds sparkled faintly at her ears. Catherine Blackwell, her name was whispered in boardrooms and splashed across business magazines. A billionaire, a mogul, a woman known for turning companies into gold. And yet in this moment, she looked nothing like the polished icon the world admired. Her face was drawn, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness, and the baby in her arms screamed with relentless desperation. The cafe fell quiet for a beat. Catherine's reputation preceded her, but so did the awkwardness of her struggle. She shifted from one foot to the other, murmuring softly to the infant, trying to rock her into calm, but nothing worked. The baby's cries pierced the room like sirens, raw and insistent. Marco set down his ladle, wiped his hands on a towel, and approached. He didn't see the billionaire the world feared. He saw a mother on the edge, carrying a child whose tiny fists clenched in distress. Trouble with feeding? He asked gently, nodding toward the baby. Catherine let out a shaky breath, as if she'd been holding it for hours. She won't take the bottle. I've tried everything, different formulas, warming it, rocking her, nothing works. And her voice cracked, surprising even her. I don't know what else to do. Marco glanced at the bottle she clutched in her hand, beads of condensation forming on the plastic. He touched it lightly. It's too cold, he said softly. For some babies, the difference between rejection and comfort is just a few degrees. Catherine blinked, stunned. I didn't think of that. Marco offered a small smile. Most parents don't. Let me try something. She hesitated. Trust didn't come easily, especially not for someone used to control. But something in his voice, steady, calm, utterly unshaken by her wealth or her struggle, made her nod. She followed him to the counter, where Isabella looked up from her drawing and grinned. Is that your baby? Isabella asked innocently, her wide eyes curious. Yes, Catherine replied softly, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. She's mine. She's beautiful, Isabella said, and then returned to coloring as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Marco heated a small pot of water, sliding the bottle inside to warm gently. While we wait, he said, sit. You look like you haven't rested in days. Catherine almost laughed, though it came out brittle. Rest. I've forgotten what that feels like. She sank into a chair, the weight of her exhaustion pressing down. For once, she didn't have to pretend. Within minutes, Marco tested the bottle on his wrist, then handed it to her. Catherine adjusted her baby in her arms, pressed the nipple to her lips and, to her astonishment, the baby latched, sucking greedily, the cries dissolving into soft, contented gulps. The relief that washed over Catherine was so sharp it nearly broke her. Her eyes filled with tears, unbidden as she looked at Marco. How did you? Marco shrugged modestly. I learned with my daughter. Every child has their rhythm. You just have to listen. The cafe seemed to exhale around them. the tension replaced by a hush of awe. Customers went back to their meals, but Catherine remained transfixed, holding her calm baby like she was witnessing a miracle. For the first time in months, she felt something other than failure. She looked at Marco, really looked at him. His apron was stained, his hands calloused. But his presence radiated something her billions had never bought: patience, empathy, wisdom carved from love and survival. "You're a chef," she murmured, almost in disbelief. "I'm a father first," Marco replied. Isabella piped up from the counter, holding up her crayon drawing. "And he makes the best soup in the world. Want to try?" Catherine almost laughed through her tears. "Soup?" Marco ladled a steaming bowl from the pot, setting it before her. The aroma hit first, ruby, layered with herbs that carried comfort like a memory. She lifted the spoon hesitantly, tasted, and paused. It wasn't just soup. It was warmth, it was home, it was a reminder of a life beyond numbers and deadlines. Tears welled again, but this time they spilled freely. She set the spoon down, voice breaking. This is what I've been missing." Catherine sat with the baby nestled peacefully against her chest. Spoon paused halfway to her lips as she tried to swallow more than just soup. Marco busied himself behind the counter, pretending not to notice her trembling hands or the tears she quickly wiped away. But Isabella noticed. Children always notice. "Don't cry," Isabella said softly, climbing down from her stool and patting over. She tugged at Catherine's sleeve with a small smile. "Daddy says sometimes people cry when they taste love. It's okay." Catherine let out a shaky laugh, startled by the child's wisdom. "Is that what this is? Love?" Isabella nodded earnestly. "It's his recipe, but not just for soup. For life." She pointed to the puzzle pieces scattered across her coloring page. "He says families are like puzzles. Even if pieces get lost or broken, you can still make something beautiful if you don't give up." The words pierced Catherine's heart. She had spent years building empires, crafting deals, conquering markets, but when it came to her own family, she felt like every piece had slipped through her fingers. Her late nights, her endless travel. The guilt that came every time her daughter's cries were met with a stranger's comfort instead of her own. She turned back to Marco, her voice low but desperate. "How do you do it? How do you raise her alone, run this place, and still smile?" Marco wiped his hands and leaned on the counter, meeting her eyes without judgment. "Because I learned something the hard way. Success isn't how much you earn, it's how much of yourself you give. My daughter doesn't need riches. She needs me present, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect. The soup burns sometimes, the bills pile up, but she knows she's loved. That's what matters." Catherine's throat tightened. Present, the word felt foreign and heavy. She had been everything to the world: present in boardrooms, present in headlines, but absent where it mattered most. Her baby shifted, letting out a soft sigh, milk-drunk and content. Catherine kissed her daughter's forehead, then whispered, almost to herself, "I want to be better. I don't know how, but I want to try." Marco's expression softened. "Then, start small. Feed her, hold her, breathe with her. The rest. It will come, for the first time in months." Catherine believed it might be true. She looked around the little restaurant, the warm glow of Edison bulbs, the steady bubbling of soup, the crayons scattered on the counter, and realized she hadn't just found a meal tonight. She had found a reminder. A recipe for something she thought she'd lost forever. And as she left, baby sleeping soundly in her arms, she carried not just gratitude, but the first fragile spark of hope.